In this video I will show you how to save data from an Angular front end or any front end to a web server, which is here in ASP.NET Core. Now this is my form, and then when I save it, my web server, the upload my data, these data which from that form will be reach that point here on my front end, on my back end, and the data are then here in under the watch, or when I come in, they are here as a second parameter, and this is written like in a data class. Also, Angular does not really have data classes. So this is the target class or record set structure, which is on our server. And when I run through it, the data will be saved, and the return will go to the front end. Now we come to the code, and as always, all my code is written here on my website, so you may download all this code. It's a little bit, it's quite much stuff, and you will find it there. Okay, first we have here a front end. This is Angular, and inside the Angular I have a form, and the form values are saved in a code behind. So I jump first to my Angular stuff. This is my Angular site. Go away. Inside the Angular we have a model. So this is of type interface. It's not a class, it's only there. Angular does not really have models in this structure, but they try to do their best. So when you say here you have an ID, you will always have normally a number. When you interact with a web API, it's not always the same. It should be like this, but it's not always. So when you get a date, it's called date time on the web server, and internally sometimes you have GMT time or international ISO time. So that's let's say this is our model. That's our structure which we want to set. These are time records. We have I'm writing on a project, some activity, the date start and the date end, and some pause and some date when did I write that stuff. So this is my data set. Then we use in Angular, when we want to post something, then we use here the post method. When you send something to the server, you normally have either the post or the put. You see there, there's the post and the put. The put is for saving, and the post is for creating something. But you also may use the same method for two things at the same time. When you have the URL and the ID, and when the ID is not there, since it's a new record set, then you also may set the one data set. So one data set is of time record set. Data set is of record set, what we had there of this time record. And if the ID is 0, for example, then you may create a new data set. So we use the inside the services, I have created a service.ts, and the service.ts has in the top here in the constructor, there's a HTTP client. This is gives us the possibility to write here a method which says, okay, update and create a data set with an ID. If the ID is 0, then we are creating a number. If the ID is a number, ID 10012345, then we try to update the data set. And then we say return this HTTP client, post the data to the URL with with a front/ID. So the ID is inside the path. And as a second parameter, there is one dataset of this structure. And you will see also here, as it's a bit pale, this is the dataset which arrived in my on my target, on my server, on the web API. So there's the activity, there's the date start, date end, and you see this is written in a date time value, and there's a project, and there's the activity text. And that's what we're sending here in this small line. So we have now the date model, we have the service, and now we come to our code behind. The code behind is the the code which happens, JavaScript code, when we have the front end and push the save button, then the code jumps to the save create. It's written in the button, inside the button. That's the code, that's the front end code. There's somewhere at the end a button. This is the button, and this has a method. It saves the method, it saves the form, and in the form is the ng submit, save create, and send the form. So we jump from the front side to the back side, code behind, and then when the method comes in, it says, okay, is it valid? Are all data valid? Okay, that's a default from Angular. Then we say if it's valid, then we try to send, and then there comes a lot of stuff, and then we say from my service, first we do the set a data set. So because on the front side, now we have the chance to, when we give something in here, something wrong, a date, if the date is written wrong, or if here is something which is forbidden or something, then you have here, before saving, before sending, you have the possibility to correct this data. So what I do here is I say, for my front side, my project, write this one into my data set, which is on my code behind. The same for the activity, for date start and date end, and these values are the values which these are local variables. These are local variables, and in Angular you always have the possibility, when you connect these data, these variables with a field, then it's always up to date. So you may not send, you don't have to send the form itself like in JavaScript, but in this case it's also possible to send these code behind values, and then you have the possibility to do corrections. For example, this a time string is only a string. This is no date time. So before sending, you may connect those data, a date with a time. So okay, you do some corrections, some improvements here in this stuff before we send it. So we have save method, the save method. We do some data module corrections, modulations, and we set the data set, which is here in this case the code, the time record. This time record, that's the data set. And then we say update and create from our time set, what we had there, and we give this ID and the data set. And then we say subscribe. Then comes a lot of stuff. So this is all. This is check if it's really if when we subscribe this method, the HTTP gives us something back. So these are the results which say, okay, is there an error, or is everything okay? Otherwise we make a okay message or not okay message. So this is Angular. As soon as we save this and subscribe it, the stuff here in our service will be sent. So this send means HTTP makes a post, And when we are there in the post, as soon as we do the post, our data reach our web server. This is my web API, and inside the web API I've written one method, which here in the brackets there's HTTP post, and as soon as you make this attribute, then which calls HTTP post and round bracket and then an ID inside, then the controller, the ASP.NET Core, routes all that stuff to that point, and then our result will come there. So what we do now is I push that button, and as you see, now this is my web server and my server somewhere at the hoster, and this comes in then, and now there comes in this record set with the data. That's the miracle on that point. And then we do what we do then is we check, is there anything like this? Is something going wrong? If it's empty, no, we don't. We make a bad request. Then we check the front end, the ID, which is here API time records, and then we have here let's see, this like ID, like 4 or 1, something like this. Then we check this ID, which comes in here. Check it with when this attribute is written, then it's automatically the first parameter, the ID, and the second is the value. And this is a key value pair. So this is curly brackets and then a key and the value, key and value. It's not only a string. That's what you see. What we see here is always the key and the value, key value. So this is also with the method, with the interface model done. Then we come here, we check, is the ID there? And if it's not, if it's there, if it's 0, then we create a new record set. If it's not, if the ID is there, then we say first or default, look up in our database where the record set is of the ID. The record set which we are looking for is of the ID which is coming. And then if it's everything is okay, we fill our local our server record by the client data, and then we update it, or we save it with the add change. We add some new, and then we are saving. So this is what we do there, and then we say we post back and okay. Now we're resuming, and our website will come back. You will find all that code on my site. As I said here, it's written in here. It's a lot of stuff, and it's a little bit complicated, but sometimes we need code, a small snippet. Where does my code hang around? So I hope it's helpful for you to get a solution on this, let's say, difficult programming, since Angular and ASP.NET Core are two difficult areas.